Jessica, Jessica, yes. I wanted to talk to you about dialogue, but if your time is short, no problem. We can see any more. We can meet again in the course of the circle next month.
Thank you, Rachel.
I have to talk today. I'm not sure how it all works, but I'll just hang around.
Okay, and
Okay.
also what I'll make sure is the two of you have each other's email address. Okay.
One thing that occurred to me was the body, and another way of connecting with each other is just to share a meal together. And so I wanted to bring that up in appreciation for Dinesh and Harpreeta, who bring us together for a meal.
Harshita. Dinesh and Harshita. So a few of us are hanging out. Any further thoughts?
So Jessica, okay. So
Yes?
Jessica, yes, I just want to speak to you brief a little 1 minute as regards to your question. You asked you don't understand how the whole of dialogue, how it works when it has to do with people that does not understand this notion of ocean. When we talk about ocean that we just shared some few minutes ago, and
That comes up
I want
often
to
in my work, yes.
Okay, to me and my experience on the field, confronting the fears and ignorance of alienated communities or adversaries in violence, conflict, either political or cultural or religious. I have experienced some techniques that will have worked for me in the community in the process of facilitating reconciliation. Now, first of all, my definition about dialogue. Dialogue is about deep conscious listening. Listening, and it has to do about the other person. The other person. It's not about you, it's about the other. The conscious listening to deep understanding of the other. Now, this is my definition about dialogue. Now, the facilitator, as you could imagine to be or assume to be in a situation, in a competing situation whereby you are called to resolve or facilitate the reconciliation between enemies or people that dislike each other, that doesn't want to see each other together in a safe place or in a point or in a spot. What do you do? What is the attitude will you use first? What is the techniques or what is the tool will you use in order to build confidence and trust with the other group that will lead the reconciliation process that will connect the other group to accept meeting the other they hate for the very first time in a safe place to share stories, to hear from each other stories, to deepen the understanding of inclusiveness, to be able to heal the other, irrespective of what has gone between the two in the past that have separated them or that have caused division among the two. First, there is a quotation that I learned from Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama said, he said, treat your enemies as if they are precious jewels because it is your enemies that builds your tolerance and patience on the road to your enlightenment. This is the teaching of Dalai Lama. And secondly, Martin Luther King said something very interesting. He said that people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. So the tool I use is the listening tool. The conscious listening, my 2 ears, is what I use first. I devote my time first to go and meet the other enemies and build trust and confidence to make them understand that I empathize with their situation first. And I listen to them consciously for them to see the solution for the reconciliation process is possible through me as a mediator that have listened to them consciously, and the conscious listening creates understanding. A world where we don't listen to each other consciously is a terrifying world where we observe killings and bombs and wars and violence. I use my ear first and my heart compassionately to listen to the other. And when I listen consciously, the other, irrespective of the division or the impact of the violence in his life or the psychological emotion, what the conscious listening does is it humanizes the other and it heals the other. And the process, I call it social psychological support, whereby my listening attitude creates a good entrance of love between I, who is the facilitator, to the one that is wounded from war or wounded or victim from any form of violence. When I build that relationship through conscious listening, the other group see me as confident and they feel safe with me. They feel safe to listen to me. They feel safe to confide to me their problems, their needs, their anguish, their hopelessness, or their hope, or their pains. When they confide it with me, now I will now have to become their voice in a constructive manner to the other side that is their enemy. What am I trying to do? I am trying to create an entry that will help each other to listen to each other's story narratives, for enable them to transcend through any political divisive issues or religious issues that might have separated them, or that might have caused the violence, or that might have caused the war. When I will do the same process, when I do the same process to the other, it creates a community, and I become the center of their hope for reconciliation. And when this is done, I invite the two for the table of reconciliation, and that process will transform enemies to friends and transform confrontation to cooperation. This is what I do.
So I have a question.
Wait, I'm going to.
Yes.
I just want to say I'm personally going to have to be leaving, but I will leave. I will leave the screen on so the dialogue can continue. I've also recorded this. You know, Ofu is one of the great peacemakers. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, power went out upstairs.
Oh, it did? Oh, my goodness. So Ofu is one of the great peacemakers of West Africa, and he speaks from lots of experience. And Fu, I just thank you for your, once again, for your amazing work and for the passion that you bring to it. Jessica and Ofu, I would suggest that the two of you might exchange contact info. Swamiji, thank you again, and Somik, thank you again. We'll leave the screen up. We just need to leave right now, but thank you.
Okay.
So much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So Jessica.
Here's my question for you, and it again goes back to the ocean metaphor. So if you
Okay.
and you have done much more of this work than I will ever do, most likely. But where does that ocean consciousness, after you've developed this pattern of trust between two opposing groups, where does the ocean consciousness, which, if we, in my mind, I'm becoming a Jewish clergy person, so that ocean consciousness is, to me, a pathway to peace and understanding. Where does that come into this dialogue process when you're really focused on an individual rather than a collective model?
Okay, thank you. Let me use the figurative speech illustration on an iceberg. An iceberg, two icebergs in an ocean. When you see an iceberg in an ocean, two icebergs in an ocean, the ocean represents humanity, or the ocean represents religion as a whole. And each iceberg, when you see from the surface of the water, you find out that the two icebergs is far from each other. But as you go deep down in the water, you find out that the icebergs come closer to each other. So what does this has to illustrate? It has to illustrate that the minds which Somik just spoke about concerning the mind, the psychological, emotional confusion or intellectual confusion that is the bubble of the waves on the ocean that needs to be calmed or need to be transcended in order to see truly the ocean, which is the reality of the humanity that brings us together. So what do we use as a process? We use a process of storytelling